good day, good morning. Here I am, Tanis of Tanis Fiber Arts. I'm a knitwear designer and I own a line of hand-dyed yarns that my husband and I run, dye, knit together. And here I am on my YouTube channel. I'm going to talk about what I'm working on, what I've just finished working on, and answer a bunch of questions that you guys have so generously provided for content for this week's episode. So let's start with what I'm wearing. I am wearing my brand new Terra Nova sweater. I'm wearing it in the colorway is called Chartreuse, and the yarn is our Luxe Yak / silk DK weight yarn. So it is I'm looking at the label. It is 60% superwash merino, 20% silk, 20% yak. So the yak silk is the bonus. It's what makes it special. That's why I call it yak silk. Sadly, it's one of our only yarns that has superwash merino. I can't get the space without the superwash component, but maybe I need to work on that because we don't really stock superwash, but I love this yarn so much. So it's sort of like it's a balance. Anyhow, let's talk about this pattern. I just released it this week and you guys or last week I should say, I launched it on Friday. And you guys, you really like it. It's a thrill. You guys, you gave it a very warm reception, which means a lot to me. And I love it too. So the details, it's a top-down raglan. It has some shaping around the neck. It's got quite a wide boat neck, which I tend to favor like a crew neck, something a bit tighter, but this is a really elegant sweater and an elegant yarn, and I like the bit more openness of it. And then down the raglan, there's a cable, and then the cable continues down the side, and excuse me for knocking the table, and then the hem. It has a special hem. Instead of just having sort of ribbing or whatever, the hem is it's knit perpendicular to the body. It's a cool garter stitch cable hem detail that I enjoy very much, that I think makes the design special. And yeah, this design came out of nowhere. I'm pretty excited about it because, you know, as a designer, as an artist, there's so many ups and downs, waves of inspiration where you're feeling super excited. You've got so much to work on. There aren't enough hours in the day. And then moments where I feel like I may never knit or design again because I am totally out of ideas. I've got nothing left in me, and like I don't even know who I am or if I like to knit anymore. You know what I mean? It's a roller coaster, and I'm used to it. I don't give it like, I don't, you know, give into it too much. I don't actually get like depressed about it. But this sweater actually, it came to fruition in an interesting way because, as you know, I have over the past couple of years been revisiting older patterns, extending the sizing, checking, you know, maybe reformatting them, maybe doing updating the photos, knitting a new sample, just kind of modernizing them, freshening them up, breathing new life into them, not doing any major edits to them. But like, for example, with my ombre cardigan, which I initially knit in a really fitted kind of smaller cardigan style, I took the exact same pattern and then I just knit it in a larger size, the size that I would choose to knit today. I knit it in mohair rather than merino, extended the sizing, took new photos, relaunched the pattern, and it just sort of, now it's just more modern, it's just up to date, it's more size inclusive, and it's just a better version of itself, you know, still being the same thing, just improved. And so this started off as a new and improved version of a pattern that I released, I think in 2011, maybe 2012, called Terracotta. Now the Terracotta pattern, I knit it in merino. I knit it from the bottom up, and it has a turtleneck. The things that it has that are similar to this is it has a cable, the same cable along the raglan. The cable did not continue up the side because, like I said, it was bottom up. It had a pretty thick band of ribbing around the cuffs and the bottom of the sweater. I say had, it still exists, has. That is sort of a ribbing with a cable in it. It's a cabled ribbing, which is really pretty. And then a cable here, and then it has a big turtleneck with this knitted on cabled edging at the end of the turtleneck at the edge. So a lot of sort of similar details, but just done in a different way. And it was knit bottom up. So I was working on that pattern. I added sizes to make it more size inclusive. And then I wanted to rewrite the pattern to be written top down, because there was no features, there was no reason for it to be knit bottom up. You know, there was no advantage to it for this particular design. Like there are sometimes you need to, sometimes there are, but for the terracotta pattern, it did not need to be knit bottom up. It was just something that I was more familiar and comfortable with at the time. And then, yeah, I wanted to add some sizes, and then I was also playing with maybe adding some short row shaping around the neck. So I started knitting this sweater as my terracotta. I cast on for the size that I wanted. I added some short rows around the neck. I was doing the cables down the side, and then as I was doing it, I decided that I wanted to continue them down. Immediately, that meant I had to make some more changes to the pattern, because in the original, this cable is actually, if you're familiar with my Sunnyside baby cardigan, which I also intend to kind of revamp this spring, it has a cable that stops at the sleeve. It does not carry down the body, and half of the cable, like your sleeve, half of it, the cable is on the sleeve and half is on the body. So the stitch count when I wanted to carry it down needed to change. I needed to add a few more stitches to the sleeves because the body, it wasn't going to be, you know, taking on any of the sleeve cables or the cable stitches into the sleeve. And so in order to have the sleeve be the circumference that I wanted, that needed to change. So then I carried the cable down, and then I was going to just do the ribbing like in the pattern. At this point, it was still terracotta. And then I just wasn't feeling it. I just wasn't that inspired by it. I didn't really, I think it was also as I was trying it on before I had done the edging, I was seeing this really, you know, graceful neckline. And I was like, it doesn't feel like it needs ribbing. It feels like it needs something else. And what it needed was that garter stitch cable edging. And so I decided to do that with a split hem. It's slightly longer in the back than in the front, and it just felt like a whole new thing. I mean, it was a whole new thing because I had rewritten like the whole top, and I was rewriting the whole thing. So then it just took on a life of its own. I added the pretty cable detail to all the edging. There's no ribbing in the pattern. I love ribbing. I'm not anti-ribbing. I'm just sort of saying the changes. And there you go. It became its own thing. And normally I really, you know, like labor over what to call a pattern. And I just like looked to Chris, my husband. I'm like, what should I call this? It's like a riff on the terracotta. Like it started off terracotta, but now something new. And then he was just like, Terra Nova? And I was like, yeah, that makes so, I don't know. It just flows. It makes sense. It's green. I just love it. It all just came together relatively quickly too. And anyways, I'm super happy with the pattern. Really happy that you guys like it as well. And as I keep teasing, and we just got our order of Willow DK, so hopefully by next week we'll have some DK in stock for you. Some Willow DK, which is a silk linen blend, which is a fantastic warmer weather yarn in a DK weight yarn. I'm going to knit this exact pattern. I'm going to knit the Terra Nova in Willow DK with short sleeves. And so one thing that I've been getting a lot, because I keep mentioning this, you know, there's nothing I love more than versatility in a pattern. And you know that any raglan long sleeve sweater pattern can be made into a t-shirt by just not knitting sleeves. And that it may seem incredibly obvious to you, but you would be shocked at the amount of people who have sent me messages or emails asking me if I will be releasing a short-sleeved version of this pattern, because I keep mentioning that on social media, like on Instagram, I'll say that I'm going to knit a short-sleeved version in linen. And they're like, oh, great, I can't wait for you to release that version of the pattern. And I'm like, guys, it's not a different pattern. It's the exact same pattern. When you knit a raglan sweater top down, you get to here, you put all your sleeve stitches on waste yarn, and it's like here, this is where the sleeve would be, right where it like joins for the body. You put these stitches on waste yarn, you knit your body, and then later you come back, pick up these stitches and knit the sleeve. If later you come back, pick up these stitches and then just apply your edging here rather than here, you've just made a short sleeve tee. Yeah, depending on the yarn that you're using, you could maybe even just cast off these stitches rather than pick up stitches and go from there. But I always like to add some sort of edging because, well, if you're using wool, that'll curl like an edging. just makes it neater. And also I find it pretty difficult to cast off stitches here, cast on stitches for the body, and not have something be kind of messy underneath here. So I prefer to pick up stitches, even if I've done it before where I just pick up all the stitches and then bind them off on the next round, just to sort of give it some structure and some neatness. But that's how you make a long sleeve raglan into a short sleeve raglan. And that's what I'll be doing. I think it's going to be really nice in linen because, yeah, the elements, the stockinette stitch, the cables, they can all be really nice in linen. The garter stitch along the bottom, because there's not too much of it, I think it'll be really nice. I think if there was a ton of garter stitch, if there were a ton of cables, if there was a ton of lace, if there was something that was really going to be different between like wool versus linen, then it makes it a bit more of a difficult yarn substitution. But you know what, saying that it's more difficult might not be accurate. It just makes it different. Like your result might be wildly different. But knitting, as I've done a million times before, 3 probably times, I knit my Rocket Tee, which my original sample was knit in merino and mohair, and then I knit it again in linen silk in our willow fingering weight yarn. The results, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful because it's all stockinette stitch. It can totally handle the substitution easily. And the result is just drapier, shinier. It's just slightly different, but equally beautiful, you know? Yeah, and so I'm excited to do that, and I will definitely keep you posted. I've been having a really hard time picking a color. I could go on and on about my color. Well, I will. That's what this is about, right? My color journey lately, you guys. Okay, bear with me. I am no longer allowed to speak about this subject in my household because Chris is so tired of hearing me talk about it. But I recently got kind of obsessed with the idea of knowing my colors, like knowing my season. My mom had her colors done professionally, like in the 80s when it was a thing. She's got this book, I think it's called Color Me Beautiful, and she's a winter. And I believe that I am also a winter, okay? I have lived my life thinking, I've lived my life not really dwelling on it. But when I do the research, like when I look at what I think I am either a bright winter or a bright spring. And there's a lot of overlap between them. And just to say, I don't even know if I really believe in this concept, but you know, out of curiosity, I'm going through, but this is the thing. I know what colors I like the best, and I know what colors I feel I look best in, but because I do feel like I'm really quite neutral and I straddle the seasons a little bit. The spring and winter have the bright, I think it's bright, it might be true. No, I think it's bright spring and bright winter have like quite a bit of overlap in what they can, in what you can wear. And so I think that like I fall in the middle and that I can wear both groups of colors. But I did not, going into knitting this sweater, okay, Chris picked this color for me. I was just looking at my shelf of yarn, seeing what colorways I had enough skeins in to knit a sweater. This was one of them. This is chartreuse, color that I love, but I never knit with because I thought I couldn't wear it. I was like, Chris, what color should I knit? He's like, that one. He really loves chartreuse. He loves yellow. Anyway, I start knitting it, and then I posted on Instagram in a story. I tried on the sweater, and I'm like, I can't tell if it's great or if it's terrible. I don't know if I can wear this color. And literally every single person who replied to it said, you can absolutely wear it. It looks fantastic. And that is not always the case for me. Like if I post an insecurity or a doubt online, I get a lot of people confirming it, okay? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think that people think that they're doing me a favor. You know, if I'm like, I don't know about this, they'll say, yeah, no, it's not working. Like they're helping me by guiding me to the truth. And so if people didn't like this color on me, like I 100% believe that they would tell me, you know, like, yeah, it's not really your color. You look so great in blue. I mean, that's like a really safe comment to say to me because you know I love blue so much. But nobody said that, which was really surprising. I was like, can I wear this? Am I a winter? I don't think this is a winter color. I couldn't find it on any, anyway. I don't even know why I got into this whole thing other than I actually even made an appointment with a seasonal color expert lady, local to me, who was going to do my colors. And in the end, I chickened out because it was pretty expensive. It was like close to $300. And it was kind of more, there's two things. It was quite focused on sort of like putting together a professional wardrobe, and I'm like, I don't need that. And then also she wanted me to bring my makeup bag, and I'm like, oh, you don't know how much I love cosmetics, how much makeup I have, and how I will not stop wearing purple eyeshadow no matter what you say. You know what I mean? Like I do makeup for really fun. Like I don't need her to tell me you can only wear these shades of brown, because it's like, I just don't care about that. And also, I don't care what are my best colors. Do you know what I mean? It's something that I will always say to people that will ask me for color suggestions and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think I really firmly believe that you should wear what you love. And there's probably a lot of overlap that you love what suits you, right? Because even if you don't know your season, if there's a color that you always put on and you feel fantastic in it, then it's probably because it suits you. And then maybe that's your favorite color. But if you love a color that doesn't make you look your prettiest, look, I don't care. I think you should still wear it, because your whole goal in life is not always to be pretty, which it really felt like when I spoke to the woman over the phone to make this appointment, it felt like there was a real emphasis on that, which I just like fundamentally don't really believe in. You know, do what you like, wear what you like. Sometimes fashion and making a statement is not about being pretty. It's about being, and I keep saying it like condescendingly pretty, because that's how I felt the emphasis was. At any rate, so I'm not getting my colors done. If you know my colors based on seeing pictures of me, tell me. I'm curious. What season am I? Am I a bright spring? Am I a bright winter? Pretty sure I'm not a summer or a fall. But there you go. So there you go. And you know what? So this is very common that when I launch, you know, the color that you knit the sample in is the color that will sell the most, because obviously it's the one that's easiest to picture. And if you like this sweater, then you want to knit it in this color. That makes a lot of sense. But I've never sold so many chartreuse sweaters worth of yarn, and I'm quite excited about that. I'm excited to see you all in your chartreuse sweaters, because it is a color that I really love. And now I feel confident wearing, so that's great. So now what? You know what? I'm going to move on to what I'm currently working on, and then I am going to answer a couple questions for you. So this is what I'm currently knitting. Well, first of all, I'm keeping it in my Joji bag, Joji & Co. bag. This is the first Joji & Co. purchase I've ever made. They posted this on Instagram. I saw it. I said I had to have it. It's a splurge. I am not a huge project bag collector. I have a handful. Most of them are project bags that we've featured in our gift bundles over the years, because I always knit at home. I don't all, you know, I like, so that's what one thing I loved about this was like the basket. That's really more of my system, is to just like chuck things in a basket. So at any rate, I do love this bag. It is so cute, and I love a leopard print. So this really, when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's the one for me. And it's a beautifully well-made bag. You know, it's great. And I'm knitting a fingering weight crew neck sweater in this beautiful gradient yarn, a sweater kit. This color is called Blue Jay, from the Blue Brick. Shireen is a good friend of mine. She makes this gorgeous gradient yarn. So like you knit and it changes colors for you. It's a fade that changes colors for you. And she makes sweater kits. So they're really quite complicated. They come with like an instruction sheet and everything. It's complicated for her. She's made it simple for the knitter, but the amount of work and like sort of calculations and stuff she's had to do, it's a lot, because you get a skein for the yoke, for the top. She recommends using a top-down pattern, and a raglan works really well, or something where you set it, a similar construction to this, because, you know, if you do something with a button band, a cardigan that you have to pick up a button band, that portion, your button band, will not match the gradient going top down. You know what I mean? The rest of your sweater. So you get this skein, and then you get a skein for the body that goes from the yoke color all the way through the gradient. And then you get two essentially sock yarn skeins for matching sleeves, for the two sleeves. And then she also includes an extra skein. Maybe she's included an extra skein of is it this? You know what? I'm not sure she does. I'm not sure that makes sense. I thought there was extra of the bottom color in case you needed to add length, like in case you needed to extend it that way. So she's really left like a lot of, she's giving you a lot of options. It's fantastic. So I'm knitting this beautiful sweater, and what it is a fingering weight version of my City Limits sweater. So I've knit my City Limits sweater many a time. Absolutely love it. It's knit for worsted weight yarn. I've knitted in worsted and I've knitted in 2 strands of fingering held together. The sample photo is 2 strands of fingering actually held together with mohair and a fade, a marled gradient fade that I made, that I really love. And actually, this is one of my daughter's sweater. This is a City Limits in fingering weight yarn, 2 strands of fingering held together in a marled fade. And here you can see there's a side detail just like Terra Nova. And this is the stockinette stitch side, but it's reversible on her sweater. I think she always wears it stockinette stitch out. So there could be some ends. No, I've sewn the ends in very meticulously, just carefully. So then on the reverse stockinette stitch side, you get these pretty details. And it's reversible. And so the fingering weight version is going to be the same thing, just in fingering weight. So, because yeah, I love this pattern and I wanted a fingering weight crew neck. I wanted the perfect pattern to use my sweater kit from the Blue Brick, and this is it. And so I'm quite excited about this, how this is going. And I think I'm also going to knit a version that's striped because I'm just really into fingering weight stripes at the moment. What can I say? So actually, but before I jump to the striped version, I actually have a short sleeve version. So this I knit in our Willow fingering. So Willow is our linen silk blend. This is Willow fingering. And for this sweater, for this version, so the thing about City Limits that makes it special is that it's reversible and that it has on the raglans, like how on Terra Nova you've got this pretty cable detail. On City Limits, rather than a cable, when you're knitting the stockinette stitch side, you have 2 purl stitches on either side of your increases, and that's what carries down the side. And then if you're wearing it with the reverse stockinette stitch side out, with the purl side out, these stitches are then 2 stockinette stitches. It's this, you know, it's your detail. This, right? And then that carries down the side. So, but because I'm just like having fun, feeling inspired, playing around with things, for the linen version, what I decided to do is what did I do? I didn't do the purl stitches. I kept them as knit stitches. And then for the increase on the sleeves, I did a make one right or make one left. And then for the increase on the body, I did a yarn over. So similar to how my rocket tee, all of the increases are yarn overs. So you'll have 2 yarn overs with 1 stitch in the middle on the rocket tee. For this one of the increases is a yarn over and one of the increases is a make one. And then I carried that detail down the side as well, because apparently that's my thing. And then on this one, I just cast off the bottom because the linen silk it doesn't really need an edging to lay flat like a wool would. So there's no edging on the border. It's really cash. But then I did pick up stitches and do an I-cord edging around the sleeves and around the neck. So that's version 2 of my City Limits. And like I said, if I knit with sleeves, like the gradient version I'm making, I would have picked up the stitches and then knit the sleeves. But because I'm doing no sleeves, I just picked up the stitches and did my I-cord, and then I've got a short sleeve. So you can do that with any raglan pattern. So, and also I knit this color because now I'm just really taking chances with the colors that I feel I can wear because I'm a bright spring. No, I don't know. I don't know what I am. But then the third version I'm going to knit striped. And like, I know I'm really just like in like a happy knitting place right now. But I'm going to show you sort of my inspiration and what's going on, why I'm like in this sort of striped. Look how beautiful. Oh, it's gorgeous. I actually need a hat in this colorway. When she had this colorway available, and I bought a worsted weight skein, and then I bought this sweater kit in this color because I love it so much. So this is my floodlight tee. This is a pattern. What you're seeing here is the little I-cord. It's the tie. It ties in the back. There's a little keyhole opening at the back neck, and then it ties. This is my floodlight tee that I launched this pattern last spring. And the sample that's on the pattern is knit in willow in the linen silk with a mohair, a subtle mohair stripe throughout the yoke. Really, really pretty, really elegant. I love it. I might knit another. Then I knit a second version in stripes. So I omitted the mohair stripes, obviously, and just knit it in big stripes. But this has 11 colors. Okay. Whenever I post pictures of it, people want a kit. And this is the thing. I'm not comfortable making a kit where you have to buy 11 full skeins of yarn. I can't even compute what that is. It's probably close to $400. Like this yarn is, I think, like $38, $36 a skein times 11. It's too much. And you'd have way too much yarn, right? So, but I knit like this a lot. This is sort of the thing. I knit a lot of projects like this. I have the yarn. I can do whatever I want. I don't have to be as concerned about the cost of the sweater because I make the yarn. You know what I mean? And then it becomes a thing where people want a kit and I can't in good faith make them a kit with enough yarn to knit themselves, you know, potentially 3 sweaters. It's like, who needs 3 striped sweaters in the same? And if you're not somebody who needs or likes to have all the leftovers, that's just not practical, blah, blah, blah. Also, so I actually knit mine using mini skeins, but I'm a petite adult, right? I'm the size of a 7th grader. So I was able to get a sweater, a t-shirt out of 11 mini skeins. But that is not going to be possible for probably anything over a size 38. I think I knit mine in the size 38. And some of the colors, like I did not have much of the, for example, the mossy, the green color that goes all around. It's the one that you use the most of. I didn't have a ton of that one left. At any rate, maybe you could get mini skeins. You might be able to get up to a size 40. Because actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I wrote my yardage the yards that I used on my Ravelry project page, and I remember seeing it recently. And our mini skeins are 25 grams, and I think I actually only used 16 grams of the 2 most used colors. So some sizes can get it out of mini skeins. However, because I'm also so impractical and I don't think ahead, I used 11 colors, right? Mini skein sets typically come in 10 colors. And so if I wanted to knit this exact same thing in 10 colors, each stripe would be a little bit wider and to get the length. And then my whole, maybe a size 40 could get it, goes out the window because now you're using more of each color. So just to say, I made this, I love this, but it is not practically kittable as either full skeins or mini skeins. But I talked with my tech editor. We did a whole bunch of calculations for yardage requirements. And I think we are confident that with 1/3 of a skein of fingering weight yarn, which in our case, our put up, that's like about 150 yards of 10 different colors of yarn. Any size can knit themselves a striped tee in this style. Did I say 10 colors? So I'm really excited. I think I'm going to launch these this weekend. I think they're going to be available on the site on Friday. So I have removed one of the colors. You might not even be able to tell which one because it just looks the same and it looks so great, right? So I've put together that palette in our pure wash fingering, 10 skeins, 1/3 of a skein for each color, so 150 yards roughly each. It's actually, because I wind them all by hand, I know that they're actually more than 150 yards each. But I'm going to say 150 because that's what our math was based on. And you can knit a tee, the floodlight tee, the rocket tee, my soon-to-be released City Limits Light, any sort of tee up to a size 66 inch, 68 inch. I don't know what my biggest floodlight tee size is. This is enough yarn, every size. So if you're knitting one of the smaller sizes, you will get more than one tee or more than one project. Because it's like, I don't know how many people are going to want to be knitting multiple striped tees in this exact palette. But you can use you're not going to have like 3/4 of a skein left of every single skein had you bought like 10 full ones. You'll have some leftovers, enough left to make, I don't know, you can knit them marled, you can do something, you can get creative, you can do something else with your leftovers. And then I've put together a second palette, which I am obsessed with. that will also be available. So this is in the colorways of Pure Wash Fingering that we currently have available in the shop. These colorways are not all available in the shop as individual skeins. Some of them we just dyed for this specifically. But these are all currently available in the shop. I love them so much. It's our super fun spring palette. We have other colors than this available in the shop as well, but this palette it's just. So I am dying to cast on another striped tee with this. And I guess I'll probably do the City Limits Light since it's the newer one that's coming out. It's not yet available, but that I'm working on. Though I think, it would make a gorgeous striped rocket tee as well. So look out for these to hit the shop soon. I am so excited about them because it's something, it's like our palettes, you know, I have done for years DK weight palettes that include half a skein of yarn of 8 different colors of DK weight yarn because it's just so practical for colorwork yokes, for baby blankets, for stripes, you know, if you get a solid and then you want to stripe all the colors, like they're so fun and prevent you from having to spend twice as much money to buy full skeins of yarn. It's just like a really fun stash building thing. And so these mini skein sets are super fun as well, but I can't say buy a mini skein set and knit yourself a sweater. Where a tee, I'm saying tee, okay, the smaller sizes will likely be able to get sleeves if they wanted long sleeves. The larger sizes, I don't feel confident saying that you'd be able to. I don't think that you could. This is really a t-shirt kit. If I wanted to make it a sweater kit, I would maybe just do full skeins. I'm not sure. I'd have to do some more calculations. But these are t-shirt kits going into the summer. Pick any t-shirt pattern you want. Boom, stripe it. It's going to be fantastic. I'm obviously a fan of the big, you know, stripes, one color each. Obviously, one stripe each color. Do tiny stripes. Do whatever you want. Of course, you're going to have to use like the same amount of each color. There's the same amount of each. So if you're like, ooh, I'm going to use one of the colors as the background and then stripe every other color on top of it. It's like, no, then you would need to buy a full skein. You might need to do something else. I think, you know, use your better judgment. Yeah, so I'm pumped about that. I love stripes. I just love stripes, and I love making stripes and multicolored knits available to my friends, my knitting friends. And I love putting together palettes. And I especially love putting together palettes that aren't explicitly rainbows. There is no green in here. There is no pink. I mean, these kind of melony orangey colors lean. No, they don't lean pink. There's no pink. There's no red. The cloak colorway here leans a little bit purple, but I would say that there's no purple. And then the blues lean very turquoise. They're very they're not straight blues. It's just something. And I love having darks and lights and neutrals and brights. And I'm just so excited about this. I'm just so pumped. I'm excited to cast on. And this batch, Pure Wash Fingering, is a yarn that is custom spun for us. And we order tons of it at a time. It's been out of stock for literally, I believe, like years, like 2 years. I am so happy to have it back. I've been working with it because I wind all the skeins, the mini skeins. So I've been handling it a lot. And it is gorgeous. It is so fluffy, bouncy, but beautiful stitch definition. It is just such a gorgeous yarn. So I'm really excited that it's back in stock and to see all of your striped tees that I hope that you knit along with me. So I think that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of what I'm working on. So I'm going to jump into just a couple of questions because I've already been talking for over 30 minutes. And I'll save some questions for next week because, of course, every time I come on here, I say I'm committed. I'm doing this more often. Do you know what? I actually am committed. And, I mean, I always am, but I'm just flaky, I suppose. But the thing is, today I'm going to film this, and then I'm just going to go onto my YouTube app on my phone and upload the video. There will be no editing. There'll be no getting it onto my computer and then uploading it to YouTube separately. Like that is my problem with YouTube videos, is that filming them is fun. Filming them is great. It's like all the editing and all of the uploading and downloading and all of that work that I have to do after, that just feels like it consumes my entire day, and I just don't have time for that. So today I'm going to try this. We'll call it Uncut with Tanis, and hope that that really simplifies and streamlines the process for me, and then I can do it a lot more frequently. So I'm going to jump into some questions. I got a whole page full of questions here, so I can't answer them all. I'm I'm going to do two that are relevant to what we discussed today. So the first question is suggestions for willow DK. Do I have any suggestions? And I do. My rocket tea DK is something that I've knit in our willow DK that is absolutely beautiful. And I think it's a really good like transitional piece because you can knit it with long sleeves. If you don't want the sleeves, just omit them, as I discussed previously. But with the sleeves in the linen silk, it is so great, you know, for cooler summer evenings or for spring or for fall. In the linen, it's really, really lovely. The linen silk has a really nice drape. And so I would avoid anything with a ton of cables. A little bit of cables is fine, but a ton of cables is just gonna it's gonna be really heavy and it's just gonna kind of pull. Texture looks fantastic in it because it has really crisp stitch definition. Lace is beautiful. So any garments, I really like tees. A lot of the Jessie May designs would be really beautiful because she's got some really, although I think most of hers are for fingering, but she's got some really pretty garments that have like summer tees or tank tops that just have some really subtle kind of eyelet details that would lend themselves really well to the willow DK. But you can certainly look for patterns that are designed for wool. And then as long as you can get gauge with which you know, it's DK, which you should be able to. I don't think that would be too tricky. And then as long as you can envision it being drapier. Wool has a tendency to sort of like keep its shape, like it can sort of has more like stand up on its own. Whereas the linen silk does not. It like, you know, you hold it and it just like, I don't know how to describe it. It's slinkier, it's silkier, it's not as, doesn't have as much body. So you have to use your imagination if you're going from a wool to a linen silk and picture something just being more drapey. But I think it's really, a lot of patterns can look dramatically different in a really cool way when going from wool to silk, linen silk. So think about it. Do you ever get overwhelmed with what you're doing? Yeah, all the time. I mean, yes and no. Do I get overwhelmed? So the thing about being a small business and being like, we're two people, we're me and Chris. However, our jobs, we've discussed this before, are very separate. Chris doesn't do any social media. He doesn't deal with any of the orders. Chris's job is really to dye the yarn. That's it. That's a big part of the job, right? But I just mean he doesn't have like the mental, he doesn't decide what we're doing next. He doesn't make the kits. He doesn't come up with the pattern ideas and then the kit ideas. You know what I mean? Like his mental load in terms of what he does at TFA is not the same as mine. And like, he's not here to defend himself, but he would 100% agree. Like he's not the creative director. He is the dyer. He's a fantastic, talented dyer, but it comes with different, you know, mental strains. And I get overwhelmed having to do everything, having to think of everything, being the one that's responsible for keeping this, you know, machine going. Because TFA is our sole source of income, right? It's our family business. It's what we do. And like without me chugging along, like moving forward, we don't move forward. Nothing happens. And when I have periods of less motivation or less enthusiasm or less ideas, like when I'm feeling less creative, it can be quite stressful. However, I just have faith that we've been doing this for 16 years and been able to stay afloat for that long, that I just feel confident that we will continue and that ups and downs come, you know. And I usually, you know, when I'm feeling overwhelmed or like lack of motivation and I don't know what to do, I just remember and try to focus on the colors, honestly. Like knitting a striped sock if I'm really out of juice, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, or a striped hat, or like a baby sweater that is just so cute, so easy, you can have so much fun with. It can really light a spark. And actually I did that after Christmas. You know, the holidays, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling exhausted. We had a big update on December 26th. And I made a crocheted Afghan. I just like dove, I always say Afghan, it's a blanket. I don't know what is an Afghan, what's the difference? I jumped in, I grabbed every single skein of leftover DK that I had on my wall or in my office hiding away, and I crocheted little squares. So I had ended up with 80 different colored little squares, sewed them together, and it just like lit a fire. It reminded me, like, interacting with the yarn, interacting with the colors, reminded me why I love it so much, like that I'm so lucky to be doing something that I get so much joy out of. And then it really makes things feel less overwhelming, because it's like, yeah, I know why we're doing what we're doing. I often, of course, it would be easier, you know, to do something with more stability sometimes, but ultimately no, you know, like I think we're super happy and grateful, and we feel really lucky to be doing what we're doing, and playing with color reminds me of that, and that always really helps. Yeah, I hope that kind of answers. Yeah, everybody feels overwhelmed, including me. That's it. Truth. Fact. There was another question that I felt was relevant to this. Oh yes, how do you get such a beautiful gradient in marled sweaters when I knit my marled sweaters? And so since I have this, I wanted to answer that question. And the answer is quite simple, I think, and it is that there's a lot of overlap in the colors. And so in my City Limits sweater pattern, I include a whole page of details on how to approach the marling, how to plan your colors, and how to marl. And basically, it's you start off, look how I do this, hold it. Let's call these yarns A, B, and C, okay? So this is A, we're gonna call it this, like, this is Crystal. Let's call this Buttercup, and let's call this Spring Fling. I believe those are actual colors that I used in this sweater. There's more than that, but we're gonna start with that. These three stripes, they fade into each other really nicely. This is 2 strands of Crystal. This is 1 strand of Crystal and 1 strand of Buttercup. Then we go to 2 strands of Buttercup. Then we go to 1 strand of Buttercup and 1 strand of Spring Fling. Why don't I say white, pink, and yellow so that it's easier? 2 strands of white, 1 strand of white, 1 strand of yellow. 2 strands of yellow, 1 strand of yellow, 1 strand of pink. 2 strands of pink, 1 strand of pink, 1 strand of purple. 2 strands of purple. You know what I mean? So there's that. It's the gradual switching, never switching both strands at the same time, only ever switching 1 strand at a time so that it gets really fluid. And then also using colors that have a lot of overlapping colors. Like, so for example, I would say, I also find that using colors that have speckles or that have multicolored tones, like not something wildly multicolored, but something that has more than 1 color in it, a solid, like I find that the least successful fade section here is down here, because the purple that I used is quite solid, and so it's not blending or meshing or adding any illusion of watercolor gradual change. The purple was really quite solid. And then the dark is a big leap. It's a big jump from sort of these mid-tones, brights, to something so dark. And so, I mean, I still think that, especially along the bottom, having something dark just in the ribbing, I like it. It frames it. I think it works. I think it's fine. And then also, I'm happy with the purple, but I do think that it's more of a dramatic, less kind of subtle flow than the rest of the sweater. And it's because it's a solid color. Whereas the speckles that I use throughout the rest, even if you're using pink, your pink has some blue speckles, it has some yellow speckles, and so it really helps the blend. Don't jump dramatically from one color to a next. Like, don't go from red to green. There is nothing overlapping between those 2 tones. Go from yellow to orange to melon to red to, you know, like really play through the nuances. Like whenever I make fades, they're usually like kind of max 2 colors, right? Like it'll go 2 color families, let's say. Like maybe I love when something goes from light to dark, but maybe it goes from light gray through like 3 shades of blue into a dark blue. It's not going gray, blue, green, dark green, yellow, you know, like I can't get through that many colors in with only 5 colors. Like you really need to keep it. Now you might have more than 5 colors. I'm just sort of, a lot of people make 5 skein fades, and I really think that they're the most successful when you're staying within color families, when the colors have a lot of overlap, and when you change colors very gradually. I think that those are my tips, and I hope that that helps. yeah, I hope that helps. So do I have time for one more question? Let me see. Oh, this is an easy one. Living in Quebec, are you fluent in French? Oui. Yeah. So I'm totally bilingual. English is my mother tongue. I'm more comfortable reading, writing, speaking English, but I can read, write, speak French, and I do every day. Well, yeah, every day I leave the house. I do. My least fluent is writing. I dread writing in French. I'm just less comfortable. My father is Francophone, so I grew up with French, and yeah, I'm totally bilingual, but English is my mother tongue. My last name is Lavallée. I'm French. So that's it, guys. That's it for today. 45 minutes of quality time, you and me. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that it uploads successfully and that it's not a disaster. And that I hope that I'm back again next week and that maybe I have cast on for a striped sweater. And maybe I'll bring that crochet blanket on to show you because it's really fantastic. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Happy stitching!